Alright, this video, we're just going to graph number 12, and now we're just going to introduce a horizontal phase shift. You can see already, as soon as I see have secant, just change it to cosine, and we'll graph cosine, and then from the cosine wave, we easily can connect the parabolas and get the secant curve. Now, the first thing we should notice, you have a minus on the inside, so we're going to shift this to the right. I'm going to move everything to the right, the parabolas and the cosine wave to the right. So I'm not going to start at x equals 0 now. I'm going to start to the right of x equals 0. Okay, if I look at the amplitude, I have 3. The period, the b value here is 2. So 2 pi over 2 just gives me pi. Let's see, I'm going to go CV. Remember, I say this is the increments. The increments then are pi over 4. Now let's get this start. So I'm not going to start at x equals 0. Remember, I do the same thing I did before. I take what's in parentheses here. It's this 2x minus pi over 6. And you know what? I'm going to do the work here for the start because it kind of gets cramped a little bit. So 2x minus pi over 6. Remember, I set that equal to 0. And then I solve for x. So you're going to add pi over 6 to both sides. So let's see here. You're going to have 2x equals pi over 6. Then divide both sides by 2. And remember, if you divide a fraction by 2, it's the same as multiplying it by 1/2. So this is going to give us pi over 12. So that's our first x value for the key points. So I'm going to put x equals pi over 12. Now, to get the ending, well, I'm just going to erase what I just did. So make sure you have this down. Okay, I'm going to erase this. I'm going to take what's in parentheses, but now, for the end, I set it equal to 2 pi. So I'm going to do the same thing. I'm going to add pi over 6 to each side. That cancels. Add pi over 6 here. So I'm going to have 2x equals, and then when you add this, let's see, 2 pi is the same as 12 pi over 6. So if you add pi over 6 to that, this gives you 13 pi over 6. Then if you divide by 2, again, if you divide by 2, you multiply the denominator by 2. So this gives you 13 pi over 12. So that's the last x value. So let's put, it's going to end at 13 pi over 12. And look, it makes sense. Pi over 12, the distance between pi over 12 and 13 pi over 12 is 12 pi over 12, which is this, the period, which is pi. Okay, then the key points. I know I'm starting with pi over 12. All right, pi over 4, there's the increment. This is always the hardest part. We hate dealing with the fractions. Don't use, if you don't have a calculator, please, you cannot use that as an excuse. Pi over 4, if you get the same denominator, 12, this is the same as saying 3 pi over 12. So if I add pi over 12 to this 3 pi over 12, you get 4 pi over 12, which reduces to pi over 3. Okay, if I add 3 pi over 12 to 4 pi over 12, I get 7 pi over 12. Add 3 pi over 12 to that, I get 10 pi over 12, and that reduces to 5 pi over 6. And if I add 3 pi over 12 to this, 10 pi over 12, I get 13 pi over 12. And that's where I end, so it works out. The math always works out. Okay, then cosine. Well, I forgot to mention, there's no vertical shift. So these are the y values for cosine, 3, 0, and negative 3. Now, cosine usually starts at the max unless there's a negative, and there is a negative in the front. So it's going to start right here at the minimum. So it's going to be negative 3, then equilibrium, then max, equilibrium, and then end at the minimum. So I'm going to graph the cosine wave first. So let's see here. Let's say this is pi over 12. Let's say 1, 2, 3. Let's say this next one is pi over 3 is at 0. This next one's 7 pi over 12. We're up at the max of 3. And then 5 pi over 6, we're at 0. 13 pi over 12 stays here. We're down at negative 3. So this looks like the upside down U. That's our cosine wave. Well, really easy. I'm going to put the secant wave in blue. So at the max, the parabola goes up. At the minimum, now I'm actually going to have to, let's see here, move this up a little bit. At the minimum, shares this point, it goes down. Minimum goes down. And then at the middle points right here, we get VAs. Okay? I won't go over domain and range. We'll do more of that in class, but that is your general curve of secant.